What's up, YouTube? I'm the Vanilla Nerd, and today I want to talk about Star Trek IV: The Journey Home. Now, I really enjoyed this movie. It is very, very fun, and I'm going to be spoiling it heavily. So, as always, obligatory spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about it from start to finish. So, if you haven't seen it, highly recommend doing it. It is very entertaining. You will not regret it. But otherwise, let's talk about Star Trek IV. Spoilers again here on out. Now, Star Trek IV. In talking about it, it's hard not to address the fact that it is the comedy of Star Trek movies. And I really like that. And I appreciate it because the last two movies were very serious tonally. And this one was just laid back. It was just funny. It was feel good. Yes, there was some tension. Yes, there were problems that our characters and heroes needed to overcome. But for the most part, it was just enjoyable, you know? And it still holds up to this day. It was the highest grossing Star Trek movie of the original six back in its day. And now here we are, let's see, 86, so 38 years later, and my wife was laughing hysterically at multiple points throughout this movie. She really liked it. She loved it. And so I really like this movie. It's a feel-good, fun movie. You can sit back, you can just enjoy it. So to start off, let's talk about the characters. And I think this movie used the ensemble cast of Star Trek to its best extent. Each person on the Enterprise crew got to have their own little mission and do their own little thing. You know, we had the three main objectives. You know, we needed to find a tank for the whales, we needed to find whales, and then we needed to fix the engines on the Bird of Prey. Great little things, little side quests for each one of them to do. And then they all kind of got to use their expertise and affect 1986 America. And that was just hilarious. You know, it was fun to see Scotty's engineering baffling the engineers of the time. It was fun to see Spock mind melding with whales. It was fun to see Sulu understanding how to pilot a helicopter and, you know, calling it, oh, very old fashioned. And it was just very, very funny and entertaining to see. Each one of them, you know, get to use their strengths in this movie. Now, ironically, despite it being the best use of the ensemble cast, it also had some of the most egregious over-reliance on Spock. He deduced the whale calls. He figured out how to fix the engine for the Bird of Prey. He figured out where the whales were. He did all of this stuff, and you absolutely could have pushed that off to other people. But again, as I think I've hinted at before, you know, Leonard Nimoy was pulling some strings behind the scenes and really wanting Spock to have a bigger role if he was going to be a part of these movies. So, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And you know what? Despite all of that, it's still a very, very fun movie, and I still really enjoy getting to see each of the characters have those fun character moments. So that's really good. And speaking of character moments, let's just highlight some of the funny ones. I love Chekhov asking after nuclear vessels. It was just so funny, especially since this is the middle of Cold War America. If you add that extra layer on top of it, and they're just like, this guy's a Russian and I'm not going to tell him anything. Very, very funny. And then he gets captured by the police. And of course it's him, you know, the Russian. And so just hilarious. Very, very funny. Very, very entertaining. Continuing on, I love Scotty. Being baffled by the old computer and how to work it and stuff. And he's just like, oh, I have to type with my fingers. Okay. And I love seeing him roll up his sleeves and then just point and click. So entertaining. So funny. Does it make sense that he would know how to operate a Mac computer in, you know, 200 years before his time or 300 years before his time? Whatever. I don't know, but I don't care. It was an entertaining scene, and that's what I liked. And then lastly, I love McCoy. He is just so funny to see him in the hospital. The entire hospital scene was just absolutely fantastic, and I just love seeing him just baffled at the dark ages of 1986 modern medicine. Just hilarious. Especially the scene where he gives the pill to the one woman and it heals her kidney. I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and there's a little bit of a plot hole, like not a plot hole, but a little bit of a question of, wow, how powerful is their modern medicine if they can regrow a kidney in less than an hour? But regardless, I really just thought it was so funny as they're being chased by the police that they run across this woman and she's like, that man saved me. That doctor gave me a pill and it grew me a new kidney, and just so funny. And then the doctors are baffled. They're like, it's a miracle. I don't even know what happened. And my wife and I were laughing a lot at that scene. So there is some great comedy with the character moments, and I think that's what builds good comedy is you build off your characters, you build off your fun characters. So yeah. Moving on, let's talk about the plot. Now, I've already mentioned that I like each of the little missions that they have to go on. I really appreciate the engagement of that. It really does engage me as a plot. They can't just do A to B. Save whales. They have to do C, D, and E before they can go from A to B. So very fun, very entertaining. But let's talk about the premise of saving the whales. It's a bit contrived. Number one, one of the things that my dad points out is that this highly advanced civilization with their scout ship is sending down these signals that are damaging spaceships, damaging the planet Earth, and causing issues. And they're so advanced that they don't understand that it's causing all these problems. And I kind of agree with that. A little bit weird. Also, side note, I've always thought that the design of the alien spaceship was really lazy and really dumb. But we'll get back to that when we talk about the setting. Anywho, moving forward, it was previously introduced in Star Trek, the original series, that the Star Trek universe has a universal translator. And in that episode, it wasn't even just like, oh, it works with all the languages we know. It's like, no. This thing works with alien creatures that we've never even encountered before and stuff. It's a pretty good little episode, and it references the first human to achieve warp capability, Zefram Cochrane. And he finds this alien entity, this alien energy, and they use a universal translator to talk with it for the very first time and stuff. And so, ostensibly, they should be able to use it on this thing, and yet they aren't able to do that. And so, it's fine. Once again, it's Star Trek. That's going to have some issues. It's going to have some problems. And so, I can believe that they couldn't translate this for whatever reason or another. Now, moving on from that, the last thing I want to talk about with this premise is that the messaging is a bit heavy-handed. I've mentioned before that I don't like heavy-handed messaging. And look, I agree. We should save the whales. We should not, we should take care of the Earth's natural, care of Earth's nature and the natural animals on it. But at the same time, I don't like it when it's just in my face. Oh my goodness. Humans killed whales and now it's proving to be their own destruction and problems and stuff. And you're just like, oh, wow, okay. Slap to the face. Save the whales and stuff. Again, it's not that I have a problem with saving whales. It's just that I don't like the heavy-handed messaging. I prefer something more like Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, where the messaging was a bit more universal. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. That's fantastic. But I digress. Moving on, let's talk about the setting. And of course, the biggest aspect to this movie's setting is that it's set in the 1980s. And as I've already said, I loved it. It was very funny, very fun to see our modern world interacting with the Star Trek world. Hilarious. But by virtue of it being in the 1980s, that means that it's got time travel. And it's kind of a trite comment to say that, as soon as you introduce time travel, the entire world is broken and, you lose that sense of reality, I guess. I don't want to say grounded sense. Anyway, it's just a big plot hole, right? That's the problem. As soon as you introduce time travel into your setting, it means, you instantly come up with these questions of why don't they time travel more often? Why don't they use time travel for this, for that, for this? Why do they ever have problems and stuff like that? And I get it, and I could go into that, but I'm not really going to. In fact, there are only a few movies that do time travel so well that I think it is absolutely plausible the way it works, but I'll get into that more later. I guess with this movie and time travel, the big thing is that I don't like about it is how, seemingly simple it was. Again, I know it wasn't perfectly simple. I don't want to say that it was easy per se. I know Spock had to do a lot of these really hard calculations and Kirk only trusted Spock to do that and stuff. Again, over-reliance on Spock. Whatevs. But the thing with the time travel was that they're just like, oh yeah, Spock's going to make the calculations, and this is just something that we know we can do. There's no risk. Yeah, it's a bird of prey. We're a little worried, but it'll be fine. And that's what I don't like, because on top of everything else, it's the fact that this happened in a Klingon bird of prey. That means that If the Klingons were smart enough to know these calculations or to make the calculations themselves, they too could just as easily go back in time. And I'm just surprised that it hasn't happened yet already. But again, a little trite to say as soon as you introduce time travel, it causes problems. I get it, but it is just kind of funny because they could have gotten away with this by it being a Federation ship, and only Federation ships can do it. Or they could have gotten away with it with the calculations being so hard, it's lucky, they didn't die, which I think is what they were trying to imply, but still, it didn't feel that way in the movie. I don't think it worked that well, and Again, it's not a huge criticism. It's not like I hate it, but the time travel aspect of the setting does beg some questions for the larger Star Trek universe. Regardless, let's move on. Now, to round out this talk about the setting, let's talk about the two primary ship designs in this film. One very good in my opinion, one very bad. And the very bad one is, of course, the alien probe ship. It's essentially just a cylinder with a little ball coming out from it. I've never been enthralled with this design. I've never thought it was particularly interesting or complex. And maybe that's what they were going for. I don't want to hate on the artists or the people who designed this or came up with it or created it or whatever, They did a decent job. I don't hate it, but I don't love it, And maybe it was intentional. Maybe they wanted to show this alien species is just so different from anything else in the Star Trek universe that they don't have anything remotely similar to what we're already familiar with in Star Trek, i.e., they don't have an engine, they don't have a bridge, they don't have viewports, they don't have weapons or anything on it that we can obviously see. So maybe they were trying to, ramp up that alien factor. I don't know, but what I know is that I don't love it. I really just don't like it that much, but eh. But on the other hand, we have a really good ship design in the Bird of Prey. I love this ship. I think it is so Star Trek, so good, so cool looking. I love the swept wings. I love the cloaking technology. I really like the Bird of Prey. It's a fantastic ship, and it was made iconic especially because of this movie. Yes, it showed up in the previous movie, and I'm sure it's shown up in other places. And it has shown up since then in other places, of course. But this movie is what made it iconic. This movie is what made it great. And so I love the Bird of Prey, and I'm so happy that we got to see that ship. And it's just kind of funny that it's juxtaposed to this other ship that's really quite boring and lame. But, whatevs. All right, one last thing. I didn't know where to put this because it's not really a part of the movie, but it's always interested me that they came up with new DVD covers, They had this movie poster, and now they have this one. And this one makes me laugh so much because it has a prominent picture of the Enterprise. And what kills me is that out of the original 6 movies, this is the movie that has the least use of the Enterprise. Like, you don't see the Enterprise until the very end of this movie. And yeah, this is the shot from the very end of the movie, but it just baffles my mind that they're like, you know what movie should have the Enterprise on it? This one. The one that doesn't see it for 90% of the movie. It just makes no sense. Like, I do not understand what they were thinking and being like, yes, let's put the Enterprise here. They could have put the Bird of Prey. They did it for the previous movie, but in the previous movie, they had more screen time of the Enterprise than in this movie. I don't understand. Why did they do this? Why? Please help. So, in conclusion, I know I've pointed out some of the issues with this movie, whether it's the time travel, the over-reliance on Spock, or the ship design of the alien probe. But for the most part, I actually really like this movie. It's fun. It uses all the characters very, very well. It's made me laugh multiple times. And, it just was a feel-good Star Trek movie. The Star Trek characters saved the whales. They did the right thing to create a better world for the future. And I think that's ultimately the true hope and joy that is Star Trek. It's this utopia of the future. It's not this dark, depressing future where everything's bad and sad. It's a happy, hopeful future where technology is cool, where the earth lives in harmony, and where we can save whales and trust that they are going to continue to be protected and saved for the rest of time because the future is better and brighter. And I really appreciate that message of looking forward to the future with that positivity and that hope in view. And so that's what I take away from this movie, and that's what I like about Star Trek 4: The Journey Home.